Ambassador Zhao, thank you very much, sir, for speaking with ANI.
My pleasure.
So the conflict in West Asia has entered its fourth week. Yesterday, President Donald Trump has announced a 5-day halt in the U.S. attacks on Iran energy facilities, citing productive talks between the two countries. First of all, how do you see this development, sir?
Well, it's a good development. I think that the fact that the Iranian regime has decided to engage in negotiations is a good development because they were refusing to do so far. It means that the American and the Israeli pressure are working and they are actually looking for a way out.
So will Israel agree to an off-ramp deal with Iran wherein they maintain their nuclear program and their ballistic missile capability?
Well, it is very clear, and the Americans have said that at the outset, even before the war started, during the negotiations, that they won't compromise on removing the enriched uranium out of Iran. They won't compromise on zero enrichment of Iranian soil, and they won't compromise on curbing the Iranian ballistic missile program and the support for the proxies. So the fact that some negotiations have started, gives us a hope that this time the Iranians will basically cooperate with the demands of the international community. And if they don't, the president always has the possibility to go back to fulfill his threat.
So yesterday, Prime Minister Netanyahu addressed and he made it very clear that the strikes on Iran and Lebanon will continue. What is the immediate objective of this phase of operation?
Well, we are continuing the operation because we still have military targets, both over Iran and especially in Lebanon as a result of the Hezbollah continuation of the attacks against us. They are firing missiles and rockets against Israel. They started unilaterally, and they should know that this is completely unacceptable. We will do whatever we need in order to defend ourselves. So the fact that the President of the United States has temporarily decided not to fulfill the threat of hitting energy targets, it doesn't mean that we won't continue targeting military targets as we are doing.
So what is Israel's end game? Deterrence, regime change, or dismantling Iran's military capability?
Well, we said very clearly at the outset, and everybody can quote me because I said it multiple times on Indian media, is that we want to remove the existential threats that the regime in Iran has created against us, the nuclear program, the ballistic missile program, their support for the proxies, and we want to give the Iranian people an opportunity to embrace their future, if they choose to do so, by degrading the mechanisms of oppression of the Iranian regime. We are not sure that is going to happen, but for sure, what we have achieved so far is a very substantial debilitation of the Iranian regime capability to hit us and to continue their aggression that has been going on for the last 47 years. With a promise to annihilate us. So we have achieved already a substantial debilitation, and we are continuing with this operation until either there will be a culmination that has to do with an agreement between the regime and the United States that will ensure our interests for the long term, or that we will continue the operation until we get to the conclusion that our military targets were fulfilled.
Ambassador, reports also suggest that Pakistan is positioning itself as a mediator between U.S. and Israel war against Iran. How does Israel view this development, and would Israel be open to get countries involved who doesn't have good relations with Israel and Pakistan?
As long as our positions are and our conditions are met, it's up to the United States to decide whether they want to do the negotiation here and there. I don't think it has much importance. At the end of the day, we are here in order to meet our interests, and as long as we continue to be in sync with the United States on meeting these interests, we are satisfied.
And so will Israel halt operations against Iran while the negotiations between U.S. and Iran are underway?
That's what we are doing.
So there are conflicting signals on Iran's leadership. While some reports suggest back-channel efforts to end the war, there is no clear indication that we have heard from Mujtaba Khamenei, the supreme leader. Given this, do you believe that Iran's leadership is serious about negotiations?
I don't know. I think we'll have to wait and see. I hope they are, finally, because we've been trying to make them serious about changing their approach for many, many years now. And finally, they have been susceptible to pressure, and this pressure, hopefully, will bear results. If it doesn't bear results on diplomacy, at least it will bear results on their capability to hurt us in the future.
So recently, U.S. President Donald Trump said that U.S. was not aware in advance of Israel's reported strike on Qatar. How do you respond to that, and has there been any divergence between Israel and U.S. over the war objectives or timelines?
We are completely in sync with the United States. If there are any gaps, that's the exception, and it's easily bridged. We are constantly in contact. The Prime Minister of Israel was updated by President Trump on the situation of the negotiations. So we are going to continue to cooperate. And mind you that this is the first time in the history of our relations with the United States in which we have conducted a full military joint operation. This is very unique. It is a testament of the deepness of the relationship that we have, the fact that, following the Abraham Accords, we've been able to work in concert with CENTCOM, and that relationship is really almost symbiotic. We enjoy trust, and I think that the United States representatives themselves, including the Secretary of War, have said that there's no ally like Israel in that context.
Yeah, of course. Ambassador, what kind of conversations are you having with the Indian Prime Minister? I mean, with India, of course. Prime Minister Modi addressed the Parliament today and even yesterday. And today also said that India is in continuous communication with Israel, Iran,
yes,
and US. So what kind of conversations are
Well, we've been having conversations at the top level, both of our Prime Minister and our Minister of Foreign Affairs. They've been updating the Indian government on, of course, the aims of this operation, about the situation of the operation. And, I'm sure that India is doing whatever it needs in order to meet its own interest. But, the bottom line from our perspective is that once we have achieved the removal of these terrible threats that were looming over the West Asia from Iran, a radical Islamic theocratic country that was pursuing a nuclear arsenal and also building tens of thousands of ballistic missiles and hundreds of thousands of drones, that plan would undermine the stability of the region, would undermine the lives of 10 million Indians that are living in the Gulf region, and more importantly, they would undermine the great plans that we all have together with India to make West Asia an area that is attractive for investment, that is stable, that can actually engage in projects of connectivity, especially since India has signed so many trade agreements that are going to increase the number of transactions and of merchandise that is going to move east and west. So I think that there's a lot to gain from the change in conduct of this regime.
Since you mentioned about connectivity, sir, I was going to ask about the IMEC corridor. Given this conflict, what's in for Israel and India when it's come to the IMEC? Because it was announced during the 2023 G20 presidency. What's in here, sir?
Well, any economic project has to lie on very solid security foundations and political foundations. I think that once we will be able to solve this situation in which the area is so threatened by a radical regime, we will have consolidated the security regime that we need in order to have a solid security foundation. Then it will be much easier to get into political agreement, and then the economic dimension will come very fast. So we cannot fantasize that in an area that is constantly threatened by disruptive and malign forces like the Iranian regime that is invading other Arab countries, that is trying to destroy a country in the region like Israel, that under those circumstances we'll be able to do economic projects because investors will not come to a region that is threatened in such a way. So I think that what we are doing now is going to remove this obstacle and give us a chance to build the foundations that we need to have economic projects.
Ambassador, Prime Minister Modi also called any obstruction in the Strait of Hormuz as unacceptable. How serious is the risk of disruption, and what steps is Israel taking to prevent escalation, which is affecting global shipping?
Well, the situation in the Straits of Hormuz derives only from the fact that the Iranian regime has decided to try to terrorize the world and to extort concessions from the United States by trying to hurt other countries that they are supposed to be their friends. Okay? So they have been attacking the Gulf countries massively, and they have been disrupting international trade for no reason whatsoever. So I think it's very important that the world unites, not only in condemning what the regime has been doing, because that already happened with the UN Security Council resolution that was adopted a few days back, but I think now there is a new initiative of a new UN Security Council resolution that would actually give an Article 7 mandate to an international force to make sure that the straits keep open. So I think that it's a very important thing. I hope that the resolution will be adopted without any objection, and that the world will actually get what they need in order to restore trade and restore stability.
Ambassador, given India's ties with both Israel and Gulf countries, do you expect New Delhi to play a more active diplomatic role? And recently we also saw Prime Minister Modi commenting on the attack on energy sites. So how do you see India's stance, given the fact it has good relationship with Israel, Iran and the Gulf countries?
Well, India is doing whatever it needs. I think it will stay active. We welcome that. We know that it is not easy to influence a country as radical as the Iranian regime in Iran. We've been trying diplomacy for many, many decades. Unfortunately, it didn't go very well, and we found ourselves in a situation we are now, in which we have to take action after decades of aggression of this regime against us and against other countries in the region. So I hope that eventually, when they had enough, this regime will re-engage in diplomacy and will cooperate with the requirements that are needed in order to restore stability in our region.
Are you also in touch with the Indian side regarding the safety of Indians who are in Israel? Because we know there are a lot of construction.
Absolutely, yes. Of course, we are keeping very well the entire population of Israel, including those who are not citizens of Israel, that are guest workers. And we will continue to do so. We are in very good touch with the embassy in Israel, and very attentive to any disruption, and we will continue to do so.
Ambassador, last question. What is the one message that you want to give to the Iranian regime once they come on the negotiating table? And I hope not, if talks fail, what would Israel do?
The only thing that is required in order to restore stability in our region is for this regime to renounce their quest for our annihilation. In the moment that they will accept Israel as a legitimate country and nation in our region, with equal rights like everybody else, we will have peace.
Ambassador, thank you very much for your perspective on this important issue, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.